and welcome to Kick Conflict to the Curb, the place where department heads and growth minded individuals come to figure out how to resolve conflict and kick conflict to the curb. I'm your host, Joyce Weiss, communication coach and queen of conflict resolution. And I support department heads so they encourage and inspire their direct reports, tired of feeling invisible and unnoticed, and are ready to confidently use their voice without losing their cool. The result is their expertise is taken seriously. Well, I have two questions for you. Have you ever been lied to? And have you known what to do when someone lies to you? Well, I am thrilled for our show today because today's guest is a powerhouse on how to spot a liar. And I'd like to introduce you to Andrea Beach. Andrea Beach is a successful entrepreneur turned highly acclaimed life and business coach and is considered a leading authority on human behavior. She combines the best techniques from NLP and relational psychology with her self-made success strategies as a business leader and founder of over 21 companies to deliver incredible results for businesses and individuals. Here's a fun fact about Andrea. She loves to race cars. Hello, Andrea Beach.
Hi, Joyce. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get into how to spot liars, tell us about your loving to race cars. Please give us a little backstory.
I do. Well, I've always loved cars my whole life. And then I had some friends invite me when I was out in Vegas and Phoenix and doing some traveling to come out to the racetrack. And I kind of got hooked. And then not only did I go do some track days and learn how to race a little bit, but then when I had a big win in one of my companies, I went out and bought myself a race car. And actually, I did that right before COVID, but I kept it. I decided to keep it anyway during that time. And so I still have it. I love to race. It's fun. Supercars.
And we don't have a green room here. We have a red and blue room. So in the red and blue room, before we started the show, I guessed, folks, guess what color Andrea's race car is? 1, 2, 3. If you said red, you're right. No surprise. Yep. So thank you for that. So now, could you tell us your backstory, how you got into how to spot a liar?
Well, it's a two-pronged approach from my backstory. So part of it was in business, and I started in sales and very sophisticated sales training. And I ended up not only in sales, but then training and doing all that in my career. And then when you start and grow and sell and acquire companies, I would say you learn a lot from the school of hard knocks and doing things wrong over and over again. So on one hand, it was street smarts. Mm-hmm. On the other side, I'm a certified hypnotherapist and trained in NLP and design human engineering. Basically, I geek out over what makes people tick. I love human behavior. And because of that, I began at a young age in my early 20s studying about negotiation and lying and how your physical body responds and reacts to things, whether you mean for it to or not, but then also how people use tone and inflection and things like that. So it's been a lifelong passion.
And you could tell that it's a lifelong passion. And as you described your background, and thank you for that, your backstory, I have a very basic question. Why do we lie?
It is a basic question, but there's several answers. Sometimes we lie to avoid embarrassment. You know, other people potentially have an image of us that we'd like to uphold. And if we've done something that we might feel embarrassed or shameful about, we'll lie to protect that image. Sometimes we lie to avoid getting in trouble. Sometimes we lie for personal gain to see if we can get ahead, or, you know, there's some benefit to us lying. So there's different reasons. Although I will say that over 90% 90% of the lies that we tell, because everyone lies, whether you like to
Mhm.
think you do or not, over 90% are white lies, or what you would consider as harmless as possible. There's only less than 10% of the lies that are deceitful or meant to truly manipulate. And so that's kind of the good news.
Well, it is good news, and I'm so glad you said that everybody lies, because as you were just giving your answer, I mean, I am not gonna be a blatant liar, so I think, to someone, either in my personal or professional life, but there are those little white lies that, you tell me if this is your definition or close to it. If not, just I'm open. To me, a white lie in my world is that I don't wanna hurt somebody.
Mhm.
And, it's not the, "How do I look? Do I look fat in this dress?" I figure if somebody asks me that, and it's a good question, I'm very nicely gonna say probably the truth because they asked me. But
Mhm.
if it's something that they didn't ask me and I hold it back, and, maybe I will say something that again, is not to hurt the person, but it's not the total truth. Could you tell me how close was I, or tell me how you feel about a white lie, what that
Yeah,
means to
that's
you?
exactly right. And a lie is a lie, but the sentiment or the reason behind it can vary greatly. And usually it's, again, because we don't want to upset or hurt someone's feelings, or because we want to continue to be in communion with them. We want to have a good relationship and rapport. We don't want to offend them or upset them. And one thing that I had to learn, especially growing up in the South, us Southern belles, we were raised, that everything is wonderful. You look beautiful, honey. And all that stuff that's very
Mhm,
cultural. I had to overcome that, where if somebody said, "Hey, what did you think of the, musical I was just in?" If it was absolutely horrible, I would say whatever good thing I could say.
mhm.
I loved the costumes in that one scene where you did XYZ, blew me away, because those two things are true. So I don't have to lie. I can just be very careful with my words and convey something to them that's actually meaningful. And they don't really know the difference. They don't pick up on the difference.
And, in my world, in my kick conflict to the curb world, I use a trademark called "Be direct with respect."
Exactly.
And, Andrea, I don't know about you, but as I was maturing, from a young girl to where I am now, I wasn't always direct. I didn't grow up in the South, I grew up in Michigan, but it was the same kind of thing as, "No, you can't really speak your truth if you liked a movie," or it's just part of maybe who we are before we find ourselves. But "Be direct with respect" is something that it's so strong in my coaching practice, because we get ulcers because we hold on to our truths, and there's a way of expressing our so we don't hurt somebody, but in a way that we're direct and not just beating around circles. So how do you react to that? And I by "be direct with respect"
I agree
comment.
with it completely, but there's a
Oh.
trick that you can use for people that aren't really comfortable with that yet, and they don't know
Mhm,
how to apply that principle. If somebody asks you a direct question and you think, "Oh gosh, if I tell them the truth, it's going to upset them," maybe what you do is you say, "Do I have permission to be completely honest? Because I'm fearful that I may hurt your feelings or it could affect our relationship." The other person will immediately overcompensate and go, "No, no, no, I want the truth. Tell me, we're
mhm.
fine. Everything's fine." So you've now inoculated against any bad feelings or harm or, ill will. And then you can say whatever it is you want to say. "Actually, I don't think that outfit flatters you. You have such a great figure, but that outfit really kind of makes you look bigger than you are." And now you've asked for the permission to be completely honest. They've granted it.
Mhm.
And now you've given them the answer with respect. And you see what I just did where I sandwiched compliment, criticism, compliment? That's another
Absolutely.
little technique.
I love that. Viewers, I hope you're taking notes on this. And I'm going to push back. You're just going to love this. Have you ever, in your personal or professional life, had someone say, "No, I really don't want to hear what you have to say"? And if
Yes.
so, oh, yeah, okay. So what did you do then,
Well,
Andrea?
I've had people say, "Ooh, I don't know if I if I want the total truth and I'll say, oh, so you were really just looking for a compliment. I just want to be clear on what we're doing here. And they'll say, oh gosh, I guess I was, and I've had people when I say, hey, can I just be completely unfiltered and tell you my real thoughts because I love you. I care about you and I want you to succeed. And I have some real thoughts, but I'm scared it might hurt your feelings. And then we say, I don't know that I want to hear those. I'll say, okay, I'll keep them to myself. If you decide you want to hear them, let me know. Cause I'm always going to be open and honest with you. And I would expect you to do the same with me. And invariably they'll then come back and go, all right, let me have it. Just tell me.
Yes.
Because they want to know, they're curious, but it takes a minute for them to settle in.
Yes. Because you're at first of all, I love that answer also. But it does take people, like you said before, who aren't as direct as we are and so many other people. It takes some time to say, okay, I've got to be ready for this. And 2 weeks ago, I had a guest. His name is Brent Brusink. And I asked him, he told me what basically the same kind of thing where I've got some constructive feedback. Are you ready? Because he was explaining it more in a leadership role, something that he had to have a tough conversation. So I said to him, Brent, so what do you do when someone says, no, I don't want to hear it? Do you know what he says? Do you want to take a guess or should I just say it?
No, just say it. I'm already cringing.
Cringe, and it works for him. Well, we're going to have the conversation anyway.
Yeah.
And it works for him because he said, I don't have to use it often, but there's always many times that person who is just a denier or he or she isn't a great employee and they don't really want to hear, I don't care. I'm here to get paid. I don't really care about the place. And when Brent uses that, it's to say, wait a minute, I'm going to stop that behavior right now. We're going to go right into it and have it.
Yeah. I have a little suggestion that if someone's in a leadership role like that, this actually goes into some negotiation tactics, that what you do instead of, it's like a parent saying, because I'm your parent, it doesn't really work that well. At least you don't earn the respect. You might kind of win that battle, but you lose the war. What I might suggest instead is something we call forced empathy. So what you then say to that employee or whomever that says, no, I really don't, I would say, well, what would you do if you were in my position then? And it forces them around your side of the table. And then they think, well, okay, well, now I guess, okay, let me have it. Let's talk about it. It forces the empathy. So then you can be a little bit softer in your approach. You say, I have some information I need to share with you, or there's some expectations I feel that aren't being met. What would you do in my position if we needed to have this conversation and maybe I wasn't willing? Is there a better way I should be handling this, John? You've forced empathy.
And this forced empathy allows people to feel heard because you're not pushing back on that person.
And it feels collaborative.
It is absolutely collaborative. That's an excellent answer. And again, for those of you watching, we each have different comfort levels in how we do give constructive feedback, whether it's as direct as my former guest, because it seems to work for him, whether it's using the strategies that Andrea just shared, which were excellent. The idea is have those tough conversations, make them safe for you, practice, don't ignore them. So anything else you want to say on that before we take a quick break?
I think you can bully somebody into submission in a lot of different ways in what we're talking about, or you can unpack the situation for them in a way to where it becomes logical and obvious that they participate from their side. And I think the latter is the long-term strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And you're going to get better results and you're going to feel better about yourself too. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back, I promise, to continue the conversation. And we're going to start with signs to watch for when people lie. So I'm Joyce Weiss, and stay tuned. Are you ready to stop dreading those tough conversations and experience more enjoyment at work? Well, you have 3 options to work with me. the quick start 1 hour discovery session, the dynamic communicator private coaching package for you or an employee, and a facilitated group coaching option, which is an interactive group experience. Visit joyceweiss.com to find out more. So, welcome back. I'm Joyce Weiss, interviewing my stellar guest, Andrea Beach. And Andrea, tell us some signs that we can look for when someone is lying.
Sure. Well, it's important to note that there is no one silver bullet sign. And you'll hear people sometimes talk about blink rate, which is absolutely true. You got to be a little bit sophisticated. The average human blinks 16 times per minute. But if you're very excited or interested in something, you'll actually blink less because you're wide-eyed paying attention. If you're trying to deceive someone, you'll blink a lot more than that because you're trying to think and cover up and hide. But counting blink rate is a little bit sophisticated. Sometimes it's fidgeting, and people will say, well, if they're fidgeting, that means they're anxious or nervous. Maybe they need to use the bathroom. Maybe they are uncomfortable in their seat or something. So that's not a sign all by itself. So it's a group of these signs together that if you see one or two, maybe they're lying. But if it's three or four, you bet your bottom dollar they're lying. So the more obvious signs that are physical, we'll talk about both physical and psychological.
Please.
So the physical signs are things like fidgeting, sweating, it's avoiding eye contact, it's looking anywhere else in the room. And it's also often something that would be inconsistent with what that person would normally do. So if they're a friend, a coworker, a colleague, somebody that you know, you already have a baseline for what normal behavior with that person looks like. So now if they're acting physically in a very odd way, that you say, that's not like Jim. What is he doing? It's because you have a baseline. Now, if you have a brand new person, you don't have their baseline. Maybe they're just naturally a fidgety person. Maybe they have ADHD and they haven't taken their medication. You don't know. So you need to watch for this group of signs together. But then now the more sophisticated ones are things like avoidance. This is where you ask a direct question. Did you take that, piece of paper off my desk? Why haven't even been in your office? What do you mean? Why would I take a piece of paper? They're not actually directly answering the question. They're avoiding or they're deflecting. I don't even know why we're talking about a piece of paper, blah, 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 blah. We should be talking about this. It's a pretty simple yes or no. So if they're avoiding or deflecting, that's a pretty big sign. And then another one is tone. If you were to ask somebody, did you take that binder off my desk? And if they didn't, a normal response choice would be no, because no, I didn't. But if somebody did, often their tone will be, what? And all of a sudden their tone changes. And then the other thing they do is they'll get very defensive and often aggressive. I can't believe you would accuse me. And all of a sudden, there they go. Their tone is up, their pitch is up, they're defensive, and they can be aggressive. Maybe you took it. Whoa. When you're not guilty, when you're not lying or trying to deceive, you'll just simply respond, no, I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, you've given again viewers note taking. Plus, you can rewatch this entire interview, obviously. So you clump a whole bunch of these behaviors together. How do you like the word clump? You said it much more sophisticated than I did. You clump them together. If you know the person and if it's not normal behavior, that's another sign. And if you don't know the person, that's when, whether it's the fidgeting, it's the tone of voice, it's the avoiding, I love all this. And how do we respond, or what do we do when we know someone? Do we know when we think? I'm going to say think. When we think someone is lying to us. Would you say no or think with that question?
Well, it depends on your level of tracking and sophistication. Okay. I feel like I'm pretty good at spotting it. But if somebody is just starting out, They may suspect, they may have a pretty good idea. But until you absolutely get confident in your ability to watch for these clustered behaviors, then maybe you just suspect. But to answer your question, what do you do? If you think somebody's lying to you, the very best thing you can do, and you can do this with your spouse, your kids, you can do this in a boardroom, is you get very still and you look them right in the eye and you just get very quiet and calm. You don't say a word. You just stop. And it will throw them off because people in general don't like a void. They don't like that gap in conversation, and they will rush to fill that space. So somebody who is manipulating and lying on purpose, whether they're trying to avoid getting in trouble or whatever it is, whatever the rationale or reasoning is, when you get very still and look them directly in their eye and you're quiet, they will rush to fill that gap, and they might start jabbering and talking and trying to over explain, which is another sign. And that often gives you the clues that you need.
Okay. I am eating this one up personally because silence, so I have learned, is so powerful, and most of us don't use it. So number one, thank you for that. The next time I feel someone is doing that, instead no, you didn't. I know you didn't, or whatever it is that we do, just look at them. And I'm assuming not like, just look at them calmly. I'm assuming you should breathe and not be like a bull, and then they will react. I love that. And the power of silence is something relatively new that I've added to my practice, Andrea, because it's something I learned when I left being, I was a keynote speaker for years, and then COVID changed that for me. And for those few years when I had to figure what else to do, it dawned on me I love coaching and I love facilitating. So, what is the biggest skill that I used? Silence. When you give people time to fill in the blanks, to talk to people in the room about a specific question, and I closed up my mouth and gave them time to talk, that silence was golden. And I wish more people would understand the power of silence because it works at home and work.
It
So
takes a
thank
little
you.
training. It goes against our
Yes.
normal human nature. But
Yes.
if we can force ourselves to learn it, the power behind it is worth it.
Absolutely agree. And now, how can we prevent our partner or people who we're closest to from lying? I'm all ears.
So there's another technique for how to combat or confront that I'll partner with your answer.
Okay.
So if you suspect that your spouse or a close coworker, somebody is lying to you, you could be silent, and that'll open the floor. Or you can do what we call mirroring or reflecting. So if they say whatever the last thing is they say, so I didn't take it. Let's just say that's what they come back with. You can get quiet and go, you didn't take it? So you just reflect the last little bit of that sentence or the gist of whatever it is that they just said with a tone or an air of curiosity. And that will force them to then unpack and speak more and tell you more. So that's another technique for your listeners. But then let's say you're doing this with your spouse and you say, you didn't take it? And then now your spouse starts talking. Well, because blah, 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 blah. You say, it's okay to just tell me. It's safe. Even if you did take it, I'd rather you tell me. And I want to feel like if I mess up, I'm safe enough to be able to tell you so that we don't create these white lies between us that creates dissonance and ultimately this barrier. Do I have your permission, honey, that if I mess up, that I can be honest without you, holding it over my head forever? Because I would love to grant you that same grace and watch them fall apart. Now, the best time is not in the middle of an argument to do that,
Yes.
by the way.
And what you just did, you unpacked so much in that answer, is that again, the power of curiosity questions.
Mhm.
Curiosity curiosity questions, and I use this in the facilitation and the coaching, is that when people learn them, they say, wait a minute, people aren't getting defensive when I asked a curiosity question. And the way you said it in your answer, Andrea, is just, it's brilliant. And again, viewers, remember that you accuse, you push back, your tone of voice, everything that Andrea and I have been speaking about so far, that's not going to give you good results. But by using the power of silence, by asking the curiosity questions and making sure your tone of voice is, come on, just tell me. And when you said, I'd rather that you tell me so that we don't have to use white lies, man, you're good, lady.
Oh, thank you. But it's also about going
It's
first sometimes. Sometimes you have to be vulnerable and humble yourself, which is another trained activity because
mhm.
we are all wired to put this image forward and be defensive of it. But if you can go first, even with a coworker or your boss and say, I just didn't finish the report in time and I was so ashamed and so embarrassed that I had an inclination to come in here and lie about it. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that I was actually going to lie to you about it, but I wanted to take a risk and tell you the truth because I would hope you could give me grace and that I would do the same for you in this situation. When you humble yourself, first of all, you'll blow
Mhm.
them away because nobody's used to hearing that. But
Mm-mm.
if you go first and say, I wanted to save face or I want our relationship to stay good. So my natural gut reaction was to lie, but I don't want to be that way together. Do I have your permission to be honest, even if it's maybe not good news? And you watch that other person's mouth drop open. You've now shown them how they can be with you and that it's safe to do so.
Mhm. So you've modeled, obviously, what you hope they will do to you.
Correct.
So by you humbling, and this is a word that, again, I know so many leaders, or excuse me, so many direct reports beg me to talk about humility, because we don't have to know everything. We don't have to do everything right as leaders. And when we admit it, like you just did in your example, man, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. So, Andrea, last question. Will you come back?
Of course, I'd love to. This was fun.
Fun. It was fun, and it was so deep. So deep and fun, what I'm all about. And I know, after reading your bio and checking your LinkedIn profile, that you talk also about advanced negotiation tactics. So
Mhm.
tell us briefly what that is to entice people to come back when you return to the show.
Oh, sure. Well, all of us are negotiating 3 to 7 times a day, statistics show. So
Mhm,
I've had people say, well, I'm not in big boardrooms or doing sophisticated negotiations. Well, you are negotiating with your spouse, your kids, the landscaper, or anyone in business, even the barista where you get your coffee, you're constantly negotiating. So having some of those tools
mhm.
that you can just pull out of your quiver and use gives you all kinds of power. And so we do talk about things that are tactics and strategies, kind of like I demonstrated a few here. I'll come back and I'll show your listeners some exact things that they can do immediately, and they'll be shocked at how easy they get results.
Oh, this I cannot wait. So you just look out for either your LinkedIn messages or your email. I'm going to get back to you. So people may have questions for you, or they may want to connect with you to follow you, even though it's on the screen and they're all clumped together. Tell people, please, how they can reach you.
Sure. Well, I'm on all the social networks and it's the Andrea Beach with underscores in between the words, or AndreaBeach.me. And that has all my information and a way to contact me on there as well.
Oh, that's excellent. So people, please do take advantage, reach out, connect with Andrea. She's she's authentic, she's brilliant, and I know that she'd be a great asset for every person, whether you want to hire her or whether you have a question. So I want to thank you so much, Andrea
Mhm.
Beach, for being stellar on this show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Joyce. It was my pleasure.
Great, thanks. So I sure hope that you enjoyed yourself as much as I did from learning from Andrea Beach about how to spot a liar. Now, if you want to stop drama and want to start going and enjoying work again, I invite you to go to Joyce Weiss. Oh, wrong one. You humble, making mistakes. Go to joyceweiss.com, where you're going to find the different coaching packages, which I described in the quick um, in the ad that I added in this particular show. And you're going to see facilitation topics and coaching packages. And how do you know if it's right for you? It's for you. If you want to start enjoying going back to work, you want to stop silence in meetings, and you want to encourage people on your team to voice their concerns openly. So all you have to do is go to joyceweiss.com and send me an email at joyce@joyceweiss.com, where we could set up a very brief conversation on Zoom to see if these programs are right for you. So, again, I want to thank all my viewers for watching. I enjoy this show because of inviting people such as Andrea to share their wisdom. And until next time, I'm Joyce Weiss. And remember, you get what you tolerate. Will it be chaos or calm?